Okay, let's play Ascension, Chronicle of the Godslayer. So Ascension is a deck building game where effectively you're purchasing cards utilizing your personalized deck from the center row in order to improve your deck over a period of time, in order to defeat monsters, purchase more valuable cards, and then ultimately win that honor or the victory points over on the right there. So when we first set up the game, each player receives a deck of 10 cards, which is made up of 2 militia and 8 apprentice cards. Your deck is then shuffled, and on each turn you're going to draw 5 cards to make up your round from your draw pile. On the board we have our draw pile, which is going to make up our center row. So I'm just going to draw out our 6 initial cards that will make up our center row. This is the pool of cards that you'll be utilizing to purchase additional cards to make up your personalized deck, as well as defeat monsters that appear in the center row. These cards are going to provide you with additional benefits as well as victory points along the way. Over on the right here, we have honor, which is determined, or the number of honor that is available is determined by the number of players playing the game. So in a 2-player game, for example, you will have a 60 honor out here, made up of the red gems, which are equal to 5 victory points each, as well as the white gems, which are equal to 1 victory point. In the 3-player game, you would have 90 honor, and in a 4-player game, 120 honor. When all of the gems on the right here are depleted, that basically determines the end of the game. Each player then receives one final round, an opportunity to use whatever remaining cards they have, and then that will finish the game. But before we get to that, let's learn how to actually play the game. So what we have now here is our 6 center row cards. On the right here, we also have a deck of mystic and heavy infantry cards, as well as one cultist monster here that we'll go into further shortly. So on my turn, I look at the available cards that I have. So of my 5 initial cards in my deck, in my hand, I beg your pardon, I have 2 militia cards and 3 apprentice cards. Let's start with the apprentice cards. You notice in the bottom section here, we have a +1 in our rune symbol. That is basically our currency that we're looking to use when purchasing additional cards. So in the center row here, if we look at this card here, for example, our initiate, it costs 1 rune in order to purchase this card and add it to our deck. The Flytrap Witch here costs 5 runes to purchase the card. So if we look at my deck here, I've got 3 apprentice to use. I'm going to use 1 rune to purchase my initiate. We're going to replace that initiate with a new card. And I've got 2 other apprentice cards here which provide 2 runes. Although none of the other cards in our center row, well, I should say all of the cards remaining in the center row cost more than 2 runes. So I'm going to look over to the right here. I could perhaps purchase a heavy inventory for 2 runes, which will later give me additional 2 power. So I'm going to add that to my deck as well. All of these cards go into my discard pile, and what I have remaining are 2 militia, which provide 2 red power icons. So looking at our monsters in the center row, I can see we have a Sea Tyrant, which requires 5 power to kill, or we have a Trickster here, which costs 3. Unfortunately, I only have 2 power, so I'm unable to defeat either of those 2 monsters. However, if we look over to the right here, our cultist card only requires 2 power to kill, which will in turn give me a reward of 1 victory point. So this little star icon determines the number of victory points available. So I'm going to kill our cultist with my 2 remaining cards, and they go also into my discard pile. I gain 1 victory point from the pool, and that's effectively the end of my turn. Going back to the cultist card real quick, the cultist card never moves. It basically is a card that remains in play at all times, and players can kill the cultist as many times as they like. So say, for example, I had 4 militia in my hand. I could have killed the cultist effectively twice, rewarding myself with 2 victory points. So I'm then going to draw myself 5 new cards from my draw pile, and then the player to my left will then have his turn, and so on and so forth. So let's look at the makeup of some of the cards that are available in our center row here, some of that are available to purchase. So this Fly Trap Witch, it costs 5 runes to purchase, and when played from your hand, you would gain 2 victory points as well as the ability to draw a card. You'll notice this is a hero style card. So let's look at the card next to it here, our Staff. You'll notice it costs 4 runes to purchase, but instead of being a hero, it is considered a construct card. When you play a construct card from your hand, it basically goes into play and remains in play. And in this case, this card specifically, on each turn you gain an initial power to play with, or in order to defeat monsters. Once per turn, you may also spend an additional 4 runes to gain 3 victory points from the pool of honor there on the right. So that would continue to remain in play until such time that there are cards available in the game that will remove constructs from in play, in which case they would return back to your discard pile and then potentially come back out in a future play based on what you have available in your hand of cards at that time. So we've got hero cards, we've got construct cards. We also have, as mentioned, monster cards that are available to defeat. So if we look at the trickster here, if you're able to defeat this trickster requiring 3 power, you will automatically gain 1 victory point plus an additional power to use that turn. The only difference with monster cards, instead of going to your discard pile, they actually go to the void because they're defeated, and then we would then draw a new card to replace that section. So that's basically the game, guys. You're going to continue to draw 5 cards from your hand, play those cards to purchase additional cards that are available in the center row, continue to defeat monsters, earn your honor or your victory points, and ultimately win the game. At the end of the game, when all of the honor pool has been depleted, you will count up the gems that are in front of you, plus any purchase cards that you buy from the center row will have a number of honor or victory points available in the bottom left. So the total of your card victory points plus your honor in front of you will then dictate who actually wins the game at the end. All right, so let's talk about Ascension. I love this game. It was the first deck building game that I bought. A very popular game, again, amongst my group of friends. Almost typically comes out every game night that we have. Probably because it's so quick and easy to set up, easy to teach and learn if somebody new is there. Fast playing, I think only typically takes about 30 minutes to play with a couple of players. And it's just it's a great game. Like, there's a lot of strategy involved, a lot of tactics, a lot of thinking. Again, another one of those kind of quiet games to play because you're kind of playing, you're looking at what's available in your hand at that time, deciding, what's the best value of cards that are available in the center row for you to kind of purchase to then improve your deck and then play at a later time. So if we talk about strategy, one thing that I've learned after playing many games of this is you really need to be adaptable and be ready to change your strategy on the fly. Depending on what comes out in the center row, in addition to what other players are kind of purchasing along the way, you need to be really have that agility to kind of change up your tactics along the way. Although the Mystic and the Heavy Inventory decks over on the left here are tempting based on the cost and the value associated to it, you'll more than likely find that there will be better value cards available within the center row. Although you may not always be able to afford those cards, you don't necessarily want to fill up your deck with a lot of these cards that are available. Only because it's really going to, I guess, bloat or you're going to fill up your deck with cards that don't really give you any additional benefit except the runes or the power that is associated to the Mystic and the Heavy Inventory cards. In saying that though, there are cards available within the game that will enable you to discard cards from either your discard pile or from your hand out of the game entirely to enable you to kind of thin out your deck and remove some of those perhaps starting cards or cards that aren't really helping you throughout the game. They're just kind of basically filling your deck, which is reducing the number of times you're seeing some of those better cards that you've purchased from the center row. I want to go through real quick some play guidelines that I found online that I think may help anyone that's looking at playing this game. kind of the guidelines are basically dictating on your turn what's the ultimate way in order for you to play those cards that you have available in your hand to get the best outcome available to you. So number one, they recommend that you play any constructs that you have available in your hand. So if I had any constructs available, play them first, because they're going to provide you with abilities right at the get-go. Secondly, if you have cards that enable you to draw a card, so say for example this Initiate here allows me to draw a card again from my draw pile, so just adding additional resources available to my hand at that time. What they recommend next is when you're looking at your options with regards to the center row, look at defeating any monsters first before actually purchasing any additional cards. What that will do is actually remove those monster cards from the center row and then provide options or new options available when we flip over a new card. So that may open up new strategy options when you come to the point of actually purchasing new cards available. Number four, they recommend you purchase cards from the center row prior to purchasing anything from the side here. So avoid purchasing the Mystic or the Heavy Inventory. If you can afford anything in the center row, do that first, again, because it's going to enable you to identify what's going to be available when we flip over a new card in the center market, which would be more beneficial to you than purchasing ones from the left here. In addition, and lastly, when you are purchasing from the center row, start with the cheapest options available first. Again, if you buy the cheapest one that you think is going to best suit your strategy, again, it's going to flip over more cards that will provide more flexibility in what you may want to purchase next. So they're just, I guess, some guidelines or some tips and tricks to help you when you're deciding what you want to do on your turn in order to really maximize that turn based on what you have available in your hand. So hopefully that's given you some strategy ideas that you may be able to implement as you play this game. This is only the base game. I believe there are like 10 other expansions available to this game. A lot of replayability. Each game has always been different. I'll see some players, focusing on construct cards. Others may be focusing on power, building up their power to defeat monsters. Others may not defeat monsters at all. There's so many avenues and strategy ideas that you may be able to utilize or approach as you play the game. So yeah, if you have any other strategy ideas or any other tips and tricks that you want to share with the rest of the coalition, please add some comments below. We can start up that conversation, and yeah, I appreciate you watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.